We are back with part two, which is setting boundaries. If Putin or Xi do not agree to work toward a world federation of laws and or another form of alliance, we will put into place a clear and practical plan to make the United States and all our global allies safer. We won't permit any regime to attack us or our international community. Instead, we will set firm, healthy boundaries with real consequences and take steps to prevent the financing of aggressive actions and wars. In the book Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend, there is a story about two parents who seek help from a therapist for their young adult son who still lives at home. The parents explain that their son doesn't work or pursue any education. Instead, he spends his days playing video games and using substances while not helping out around the house. When the therapist talks to the son, he insists that he has no problems and that his life is wonderful. When the therapist returns to the parents, he surprises them with this conclusion: your son does not have a problem. You do. The son is right. He doesn't have any issues. He has a comfortable home, food, clothes, and people who care for him. The real problem is with the parents for not setting clear boundaries. They must enforce real consequences that hold him accountable for his life and actions. My fellow Americans and global family, we must acknowledge that we also have a problem. We must take responsibility and set firm boundaries with real consequences moving forward. To do this, we must speak clearly to any aggressive regime. Enough is enough. We will stop their plans for expansion and attacks. It is time, it is well past time, for us and all peaceful nations to set clear boundaries and stop all trade and interactions with hostile regimes until they show genuine efforts toward peace. This will be a tough challenge, both for us and our allies, as well as for the people in those affected countries. But it's a sacrifice we must make now for the safety and security of ourselves and our future generations. Now is the time for us to come together as a nation and a global community. We need to stand firm like never before in history. We will defend ourselves with calm, clear focus, and a strong commitment to creating a safer world for everyone, while eliminating the incentives to wage war. We stand united as a large and diverse community. We must acknowledge our differences and that we can no longer afford to fight amongst ourselves. It's time to put aside our disagreements and focus on the serious threat of nuclear and biological warfare that endangers not just our nation, but the entire world. Let's face a serious truth. In 2008, during the Beijing Olympics, the Chinese Communist Party declared, "One world, one dream." At first, this sounds like a hopeful message about bringing everyone together. However, we should not be fooled. It reveals a concerning plan for a world governed by a single Chinese leader. In such a world, every move people made would be watched, and their hopes and dreams would be stifled. In official papers and statements from Xi Jinping and other leaders of the Communist Party of China, the CCP, they say they want to build upon and enrich Mao Zedong's thoughts. Mao was in charge during a time when more than 70 million Chinese died, even though it didn't happen during a time of war. This number is far higher than the number of deaths overseen by Hitler. Mao believed that if it were necessary to sacrifice a large portion of the Chinese population to maintain its power, so be it. His way of thinking is part of a common tendency in the history of leaders to put their political beliefs and goals for seeking and maintaining power ahead of people's lives. With Xi Jinping and the CCP following Mao's ideas, we need to think about this. If Mao was willing to sacrifice his people to hold on to power, how many innocent lives outside of China would they be willing to take, given the chance? History shows that the outcomes could be severe, especially since they could start developing a biological weapon that would be far worse than COVID-19 and might only leave Asian people immune. This could be done by creating a virus or modifying a biological agent to target specific proteins or genes that are found in different populations. I am confident that Russia understands that the one world rule sought by the CCP poses a much greater threat to Putin's country than peaceful coexistence with America and his allies. The Chinese Communist Party has already caused serious harm through the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to the loss of over 1 million American lives and more than 7 million deaths worldwide. Additionally, more than 16 million Americans are still dealing with long COVID symptoms. On top of that, fentanyl epidemic produced and funded under Xi Jinping's orders has taken an estimated 250,000 American lives since 2018. To put that in perspective, it's like experiencing a 9/11 attack on our soil every 2 weeks. However, because their attacks against us and our allies are often hidden and easily denied, our response hasn't been as urgent or substantial as it should be compared to how we fight terrorism. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand it yourself." Let's make this easy to understand. Imagine a family of 10 who live in a lovely house by a beautiful lake. Across the lake, there's a bigger family of 20. They make fun toys that you can buy for low prices, and everything seems great for a while. But then something horrible happens. The parents in the bigger family let out a sickness that makes one of your brothers very sick, and he dies. Then they also make fake medicine that makes another one of your sisters very sick, and she dies too. Things get worse. The parents are using the money you spent on their toys to build scary bombs that are pointed at your house and the houses of your friends. So I ask you, should we keep being friends with those parents? Should we keep letting them be a part of our lives? Or is it better to set safe boundaries and play with friends who care about us and make toys together in a safe place? I find it quite ironic when the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party make comments about their country's long history while dismissing the relatively short age of the United States. The truth is that our democracy and Constitution were created in 1787. Over the past 250 years, China has undergone significant changes in its government, whereas the United States has remained strong and consistent thanks to its Constitution, which allows for abundance, growth, and change. In contrast, the CCP started just 75 years ago in 1950 and is on increasingly unstable ground. Setting clear boundaries is one of the life's most challenging tasks. Anyone who has taken care of someone else understands how much it can hurt both the caregiver and the person being cared for. The saying, "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you," often holds a lot of truth. Showing tough love is hard, but it is necessary. We care about the people of China and Russia. Still, their leaders need to either work with us to create and follow real international laws and make peaceful agreements, or they must understand that America and all its allies may have to end all connections with them. War isn't just a fight that happens far away. It's supported by money and relies on the people's desire to engage in conflict. If there isn't enough money to fund a war, and if people aren't willing to take part in those terrible events, then there will be no war. Both China and Russia rely selling their goods to other countries. When the world's largest economies stop buying Chinese products and Russian oil, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin will lose the revenue they need to launch future attacks. It is as simple as this. Without funds to support wars, there cannot be wars. We will stand firm against xenophobia, the unfair dislike or prejudice against people from other countries. We value and welcome everyone, Americans and people from around the world, regardless of their background, as we unite for this crucial mission. While I may say that the color white in the American flag here symbolizes our unity, it is our diversity that truly creates our strongest bond. There is no lower level of consciousness on this planet than to judge someone based on the color of their skin. The various contributions from people of different nations enrich our society, creating a vibrant blend of cultures and ideas in America. We will not tolerate discrimination in any form, and we will celebrate the strength that our diversity brings to our nation. We will treat everyone with the highest respect and offer kindness and support to our fellow Americans from China and Russia. We will listen to them for help in dealing with ongoing aggression. The old saying, "It takes one to know one," is one of the most profound statements in psychology. Our fellow Americans who have lived under these leaders can share valuable insights on how we can protect ourselves and achieve peace. As Americans, along with our global allies, we need to prepare for the potential discomfort that may arise from severing ties with Xi and/or Putin. The journey toward healing means creating a safe path for ourselves and future generations. Yes, we will close all stores owned by the CCP, such as GNC. We might have to give up some comforts, like our favorite Nike shoes, the newest smartphone models, or Barbie dolls, but the long-term safety of our neighborhoods and communities is worth these short-term sacrifices. We can also check out vintage stores and shop at places like Goodwill. These are fun and eco-friendly ways to save money. We will need to gather essential supplies, explore alternatives, and begin producing the necessities we currently import from the countries with which we are severing ties. In addition, we must support our farmers and businesses that rely on trade with these nations as they navigate this challenging transition. We must work together during this time to ensure everyone can adapt and thrive. This past summer, I traveled through Europe with a woman who holds dual citizenship in the United States and Russia. She moved to America when she was 18 and has lived here for 20 years, but her roots are still deeply tied to Russia. Through her perspective, I saw the clear differences in how Russian and American citizens view the world. I recognize that Russians have faced a brutal and unique history. While we Americans celebrated the end of World War II in 1945, that victory didn't bring peace to much of Europe. Instead, it marked a shift from one oppressive regime to another, from Hitler to Stalin. Stalin's desire for expansion and control is similar to what Putin is currently doing as he attempts to regain Soviet influence. He even described the fall of the Soviet Union as the biggest geopolitical catastrophe of the century. Since he annexed Crimea in 2014, over 1 million lives have been tragically lost. Just as Xi Jinping follows the ideas of Mao Zedong, we must also examine Vladimir Putin's admiration for Joseph Stalin, who was responsible for the deaths of around 20 million people during his rule. Putin often downplays the scale of Stalin's terrible actions, like the Gulag system, the Great Purge, and the forced collectivization that caused widespread famine. He has called these atrocities necessary evils, and even set up Stalin centers and increased the number of statues and monuments honoring Stalin throughout Russia. This trend reveals a disturbing attempt to portray Stalin in a more favorable light. Putin's praise of Stalin raises serious concerns about global safety, especially since he has unchecked nuclear power and endorses the idea of necessary evils. We will confront this reality with clarity. We need to understand the implications of Putin's admiration for a dictator like Stalin and recognize the dangers it poses. By acknowledging these historical truths, we can better prepare ourselves to advocate for safety and promote a world that values human life and dignity over oppressive ideologies. We must stand united against any form of tyrant glorification and work together to support democratic values and human rights. Education and awareness are our strongest tools in this fight. By learning from the past, we can ensure that such atrocities are never repeated and that our future generations live in a world free from tyranny and fear. In his book titled Judo, History, Theory, and Practice, Vladimir Putin writes, "Judo is not just a sport. It is a philosophy that teaches you to live your entire life with respect for others." So Vladimir, will you practice what you preach and not repeat the mistakes of the past? Are you ready to stop the unnecessary violence and truly respect the sovereignty of other countries? Are you willing to create lasting laws and prosperity for Russia and all nations? Or do you plan to return to an era like Stalin's, marked by war, death, and famine? If you choose to embrace judo in its most valid form and pursue respect for others and international laws, we are truly committed to supporting that goal and will do everything we can to help achieve it. However, if your choice is to act with aggression, expand your control, and start wars, then the United States, along with all of our allies, will use all of our strength to defend ourselves against any future attacks, even those that are hidden. If we face aggression against ourselves or our allies, the most effective way to promote peaceful change in the world is through education and raising awareness. Americans will strengthen our First Amendment rights to free speech globally like never before. We will revive and significantly support American institutions that totalitarian regimes have often criticized, such as Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and the National Endowment for Democracy. As long as these attacks continue, whether through cyber attacks, spreading false information, interfering in elections, violating sanctions, biological warfare, deadly drugs, or war crimes, we will create and fund educational programs to expose these actions. People who have lived under the authoritarian regimes often say that our radio-free broadcasts were a lifeline for them. Removing this vital resource was one of the biggest mistakes America ever made. We are committed not only to restoring these broadcasts, but also to utilizing our advanced communication technologies to make them accessible to everyone. People around the world deserve to hear all sides so they can form their own understanding. We will share our views and those of our allies with as many citizens of oppressive regimes as possible, using new technologies that are not available to the rest of the world. During my 2 weeks in Russia, I noticed that internet restrictions were the opposite of an iron curtain and had many holes that were easily accessible. The United States and our allies can communicate with citizens everywhere daily, just as Russia and China communicate with our people, benefiting from an open internet and freedom of speech. However, our communication will always be based on peace, love, and respect for one another. It doesn't matter what type of government people in other countries choose. What truly matters is whether their leaders act peacefully. We will no longer tolerate or forget attacks against us or our allies. Still, I will be the first to support giving Vladimir his black belt back if he chooses to focus on establishing fundamental laws, practicing self-defense, showing respect for others, and promoting peace. Unfortunately, the reality is that social unrest in countries like China could increase dramatically as migrant workers face job losses and shortages of essential goods. If Xi and Putin decide to pursue international law and peace with the U.S., we will respect their leadership. Some people might view leading with compassion and kindness as a weakness, especially when dealing with aggressive and power-hungry governments. However, this conversation goes beyond simple ideas of winning or losing. There are no true winners in a nuclear war. Instead, it's about survival. Kindness and serious self-defense will ultimately win out, while oppressive regimes will fade into history just like they always have. As Jesus reminds us, "Take heart in me, I have overcome this world." It is important to remember that while our bodies and this world may be temporary, the love inside us is eternal and cannot be shaken. To illustrate this, think about how calmly Jesus faced his crucifixion. His willingness to sacrifice himself came from a place of complete fearlessness. Let me be very clear. We will not live in fear of threats from aggressive regimes anymore. If any aggressor decides to attack us or our allies with nuclear weapons, they will have only minutes left on this earth. Every regime that threatens us with nuclear attacks knows it will lead to their immediate destruction. The potential dangers posed by the CCP and its possible use of so-called ethnic biological weapons are of equal concern, if not even greater. The use of ethnic biological weapons could harm all but the Asian peoples, allowing Xi Jinping to chase his dream of global CCP rule. I know that vaccines can be controversial, with about 20% of Americans opposed to them in many situations. In 2020, the Trump administration and leaders worldwide worked really hard to develop a COVID-19 vaccine quickly. The US government's Operation Warp Speed was a remarkable effort that ultimately saved millions of lives globally. When I first caught COVID-19, I immediately realized this was no regular illness. The severe migraines, like grinding metallic sensations in my head, were unprecedented. I also developed mild Bell's palsy on the left side of my face. For 2 months, I lost my sense of taste and smell completely. I was also taking care of my 80-year-old mother, so I decided to get vaccinated. And to my surprise, my taste and smell returned almost immediately. The Chinese Communist Party claimed that the virus came from a man who ate raw bat meat. When I first heard that, I literally laughed out loud. And I thought, what the hell? Like a Chinese Ozzy Osbourne? Many people somehow accepted this explanation without question. However, now that we have recovered from the devastation it caused and have more information, the world is trying to investigate the situation more closely. But of course, the CCP won't sanction this, saying, nothing to see here, folks. Move along. The CCP knows precisely where the virus came from, one of their biological warfare labs. My mother's first COVID bout happened before the vaccine was available. She ended up in the hospital where it looked like she might die alone, as so many others did because visitors weren't allowed. The doctors were amazed that she survived, but I wasn't surprised. I know she's one of the toughest Okie farm girls out there. When she caught COVID-19 again, we were worried because the first attack had taken a significant toll on her body and mind. Luckily, she had the vaccine this time, and the doctors said it saved her life. I am incredibly grateful to all the scientists who worked tirelessly and quickly to develop the vaccine, as well as to the Trump administration for making Operation Warp Speed a reality, and to the Biden administration for rolling it out. This was a great example of how our American family can come together quickly to save lives. I strongly support through testing for all new vaccines, thorough testing for all new vaccines when we have the time to do so. However, when it comes to the threat of biological warfare, we must stay alert and defend ourselves and our allies. This is our moment. The world will unite to form a global government, create a new peaceful alliance, and stop depending on luck. We now have solid plans that will guide us toward law and order in this chaotic world. If ensuring national and global safety from nuclear war is my only significant achievement as president, I will count it as a great victory. Together, we can and will do this. So now, let's take a break while we listen to Ozzy Osbourne sing Crazy Train. The lyrics in this first verse say, maybe it's not too late to learn how to love and forget how to hate. They do not make rock stars like they used to. Go Ozzy. Love always wins. Always. Thank you.